You cannot fix what you are drowning in. You have to find solid ground first. And from that ground, you build. You cannot be useful to a broken world if you are broken by it. You cannot build the ground for someone else if you have no ground to stand on. The masculine cannot protect the feminine if he himself is running on empty. You cannot give what you do not have. When a woman is not fighting for her physical survival every day, something becomes possible that was not possible before. She has energy left. Contentment is not the absence of ambition. It is the presence of alignment. A content vessel with a leak will not hold any amount of feminine flow. The leak is always the inner misalignment. The most effective people, the ones who actually move something in this world, are not the ones who are most outraged. They are the ones who are most grounded. The world does not need more people who are consumed by its problems. It needs more people who are grounded enough to actually solve them. Come home to yourself, not to hide there, to build from there. Because every real thing that has ever been created came from someone who had found their ground first. From that stillness to build something that mattered. Episode 17, The Mindful Journey. Over the last few episodes, we have looked at some heavy things. The invisible load a woman carries, the depletion that builds when she is consumed instead of protected. The way that pattern runs in every corner of the world, in different costumes, but with the same result. And I want to be honest with you. When you sit with all of that, really sit with it, it is a lot to carry. And here is something I have learned personally. You cannot fix what you are drowning in. You have to find solid ground first. And from that ground, you build. This episode is about that ground, about what happens when the noise slows down, when you stop reacting to the world and start building your relationship with it. This is the mindful journey, and it is the most important turn in this series. Something shifted when I came back to Melbourne. Not immediately, not in a single dramatic moment. It happened gradually. What had felt like the entire world falling apart began to slow down. The things that had felt urgent became less urgent. The noise that had felt overwhelming moved further away. Not because the problem disappeared. The problems are still there. The world is still carrying everything we talked about. But I was no longer inside the friction of it every day. And that distance, that physical, geographical, energetic distance created something I had not expected. Clarity. Not the kind of clarity that comes from having all the answers. The kind that comes from finally being still enough to hear your own thoughts. And what I felt was this: you cannot be useful to a broken world if you are broken by it. You cannot pour into what is depleted. If you are depleted yourself, you cannot build the ground for someone else if you have no ground to stand on. This is not selfishness. This is the most important architectural truth of this entire series. The masculine cannot protect the feminine if he himself is running on empty. The woman cannot open if the man beside her is collapsed. You cannot give what you do not have. And the work of building what you have, that begins from inside. And here is what I came to understand. Something I want to name clearly. The West, despite everything we discussed, despite the golden cage, despite the private sphere dangers, despite the way it has not yet solved the deeper problem of the masculine, got something fundamentally right. It builds the baseline. And the baseline matters more than we acknowledge when we are busy criticizing what is still wrong. When a woman is not fighting for her physical survival every day, when she is not calculating whether she is safe just to stand in public space, something becomes possible that was not possible before. She has energy left, energy that was not consumed just by being in public, energy she can redirect into her work, into her creativity, into her own relationships, in her own becoming. The baseline is not the destination, but it is the floor you need before you can build anything above it. And coming back to this ground, to the society that provides that floor, I felt it, not as a political position, as a physical reality. There is a specific kind of rest that comes when you are no longer in the daily friction of broken system. When the streets work, when the systems function, when you are not spending your mental energy just navigating the basics, the rest is not laziness. It is the conditioning for something far more important than productivity. It is the condition for genuine, deep, original thought. And in that rest, something else arrived. The sense of identity. Specific, clear, and mine. I am Australian, and I say that with a pride that surprised me. Not because Australia is perfect. We have covered enough of its imperfections in this series. But because calling this land home means something. It means belonging to a society that made a decision at some point to provide the conditions for the dignified life for everyone who lives here. That should not be taken for granted. This is not nothing. This is an enormous thing by itself. And I carry the history of the East with me. The ancient wisdom, the depth, the spiritual architecture, the understanding of energy and polarity that we have been building through this entire series. Both of those things live in me. The Eastern understanding of what the universe is. The Western provision of the ground to build on. The combination, the ancient wisdom in functional society, is not a contradiction. It is the most powerful position a person can stand in. And then there is this, something quieter than pride, something underneath the clarity, contentment. I have been thinking about this word a lot because in the world we live in, contentment has been made to sound like giving up, like settling, like not wanting enough. That is not what I mean. Contentment is not the absence of ambition. It is the presence of alignment. When your inner universe, what you actually are, what you actually want, what you actually believe in, is aligned with how you are living, there is a quality of ease that arrives. Not laziness, ease. Things that used to require enormous effort begin to flow. Not because they become easier, because you stopped fighting your own nature while trying to do them. This is what I call the contentment of the life force. When you are vibrating with what you actually are, your inner state is aligned with your outer expression. The universe does not have to drag you towards your own life. It simply brings it, not magically, architecturally, because aligned energy moves in one direction, and one direction is enormously more powerful than fragmented energy moving in 10. Now here is the practical truth of all this. Your inner universe and your outer universe are not separate things. We talked about this earlier in the series, the cosmic law that says there is no difference between the universe inside you and the existence that manifests around you. They are the same system, expressed at different scales, which means this: a content vessel, a person whose inner world is aligned, whose life force is not leaking in 10 directions, whose energy is contained and directed, will attract the outer circumstances that match that alignment, not as wishful thinking, as physics. A vessel with a leak cannot hold flow. You can pour into it endlessly, pour all the opportunity in the world, all the potential, all the right circumstances. It drains through the gap. The first work is always the vessel, sealing the leak, finding the alignment, returning to your own ground. A content vessel with a leak will not hold any amount of feminine flow, any amount of abundance, any amount of what universe is trying to bring towards you. The leak is always the inner misalignment, and the only way to seal it is to come home to yourself. And so from that ground, something new becomes possible, something I can feel building, not as a plan executed by force, as something that the universe is gently assembling because the inner conditions are finally ready for it. A new venture, content, courses, products, a business built on everything we have been discussing in this series. Not built as an escape from the world's problem, but as a response to them. Because this is the thing about genuine alignment. When you are truly aligned, when your work comes from a place of real conviction rather than performance or fear, it stops being work. It becomes the living proof of everything you are. My outer universe, what I build, what I create, what I put into the world, is the visible, tangible expression of my inner universe. Fully visible, fully tangible. And the most important part of that work, the part that drives everything, is the repair. Repairing the damage done by a world that has consumed the feminine for so long, it forgot what the actual feminine is. Showing what the masculine looks like when it has returned to its actual purpose, when it has stopped consuming and started providing ground. And the reason I can do any of this, the reason I can build, create and contribute something real, is because I found the ground first. I came home to myself first. And that is what I want to give you today. Not a blueprint, a direction. You cannot carry the weight of world's problem in your body every day and expect to have energy left to actually change something. This is not strength. This is a different kind of depletion. The most effective people, the ones who actually move something in this world, are not the ones who are most outraged. They are the ones who are most grounded. They have looked at the problem clearly. They have felt the weight of it honestly. And then they have returned to themselves, to their own ground. And from there, they build something. That is the mindful journey, not a retreat from the reality, a recalibration, a return to the place inside yourself where the work becomes possible, where the vessel is sealed, where the inner and outer can align, where the life force is not leaking into very urgent crisis in the world that you cannot personally fix. And from that place, you work on what you can, what is actually in your 360 degrees, what is genuinely yours to build. The world does not need more people who are consumed by its problems. It needs more people who are grounded enough to actually solve them. That shift from consumed to be grounded does not happen automatically. It is a choice made in the quiet, in the stillness, in the morning, before the world makes its first demand of the day. We have spent 4 episodes looking at the world honestly, at the feminine being consumed, at the masculine falling apart, at the cage in every geography, at the cost of all of it. And now we turn, not because the problem is solved, because you cannot build the solution from inside the problem. You have to find the ground first. Come home to yourself. Find the place inside you where the noise of the world does not reach. Not to hide there, to build from there. Because every real thing that has ever been created, every genuine contribution to this world came from someone who had found their ground first, who had sealed the leak, who had aligned their inner and outer universe, who had stopped carrying what was never theirs to carry. From that stillness to build something that mattered, that is the mindful journey. And it begins the moment you decide the ground beneath your feet is yours. Share this video with someone who is so consumed by the world's problem that they have forgotten they are allowed to come home to themselves first. Because you cannot pour from empty, and the world needs what only you can build. Remember, this is not an advice. This is the code. See you at sunrise.